5 2026, Groundhog's Day, Candlemas. Apparently these are connected. I was doing a little research into it, and it is specifically tied to Candlemas, a Christian holiday, but also a pagan holiday in bulk. And it's the midpoint between the winter and summer solstices. Groundhog Day sees his own shadow. Just 6 more weeks of winter. Obviously, the groundhog is just a ceremonial prop. It doesn't really determine anything. It's just tradition. There's actually a committee, a little group of probably druids or something, but it's definitely a human committee that makes the decision every year. I don't know how they make the decision, but they don't leave it up to the groundhog. It's also the 33rd day of the year. And we are also looking at a couple of new developments. Things to look forward to. The Super Bowl next Sunday, but also Artemis 2. Artemis is the twin of Apollo, and there's a manned mission going in the vicinity of the moon. But apparently they're not going to land on it. They're testing out their life support features to make sure it's safe for future lunar and Martian landings. And I'm wondering, didn't they have that stuff figured out back in the 60s? I mean, they didn't have any deaths on the moon. Nobody died on the moon, as far as I recall. So how is it that they don't have the confidence to make it happen many decades later? I mean, my theory as to why they haven't landed on the moon again in all these decades is that the rear screen projection wouldn't fool anybody today. And they don't want to rush it. They want to have the most sophisticated generative AI LED screen recording rooms. They have to have state-of-the-art special effects far ahead of what the average consumer can access in order to pull off the next one and have it last. Because the previous manned lunar missions didn't age well. And they get faker by the year. I don't think anybody can deny this. The only people who really still believe in it are those who just grew up taking it for granted because it was such a major, I'd say miracle, but such a major moment for humanity. Definitely a manufactured miracle. We talk about fake historic events, and this is exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about. When they're manufacturing history, the big events, the ones that connect the whole world, are really the most significant because it synchronizes us. One big leap for all mankind. We all leapt onto the movie stage. You know, undeniably, Apollo 11 was probably it. That is when we entered the dream world. And symbolically, it's very, I think, appropriate, considering, you know, the solar is the reason, logic, linear, the light of day, news. Lunar is the silver screen, the dream world, fantasy. And as Kubrick displayed in 2001: A Space Odyssey, the sun and the moon conjoined into the eclipse over the monolith. The monolith is the screen, the programming screen. And the sun and the moon conjoined represent these two worlds, the real and the fake, converging in the minds of the consumers of media. And what we're living in right now is a product of that. And the things that drag us into the movie the most are the big psyops. Things like 9/11, things like 2020 was very participatory. I mean, we all got stimmy checks for our work as crisis actors, helped offset the costs of the costume, the little face diapers. A real quick note regarding the Fakeologist show. We're no longer doing Mondays because my art class just started tonight. So we've moved it. So now it's going to be Fake Tuesdays. So fake Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, IPS and Fakeologist. That begins tomorrow. So again, 6 more weeks of winter upcoming. Someone said, is this going to be like a challenge or disaster? Because disasters are a great way to lower our expectations and appetite for space exploration. Like, oh, we're getting a little antsy. We want to go to the moon, but it's fake. How do we put it off? Make another Challenger disaster. That'll dampen our enthusiasm. But I was saying we already had a Challenger explosion. We had the Challenger 650. Crashed a couple days before the 40th anniversary of the Challenger. 7 died, like in the Challenger. Runway 33, that kind of stood out to me. And the last words we heard, or they heard, was, quote, "Let there be light." It all seems very ritualistic. Anybody care to guess how many $1 million it costs for a fully equipped Challenger 650? If you were on the market for one of those planes? I was just looking up what kind of craft it was, trying to figure out what the deal is here. It's called the Bombardier Challenger. So the Bombardier Challenger is the one that was the subject of this recent. I mean, you can, maybe it's real, maybe it's fake. I mean, if you think it's real, what's your evidence? But yes, if you guessed $33 million, you would be correct. What's up, Ipessimist? Caught a live from West Coast, Australia. Somebody tried to tell me that you had no chemtrails in Australia until 2020. I'm like, well, first, chemtrails don't exist, but two, I did a cursory search, and there were anti-chemtrail nutcases organizing over there back in 2012. So again, fake Tuesdays resume tomorrow. 6 more weeks of winter. Another trip to space or to the moon on Super Bowl Sunday, which is also the birthday of Eliphas Levi, the magician who invented or designed the Baphomet. It's also Levi's Stadium. As we mentioned, there's some weird occulty links between that, Seattle Seahawks, and the Flying Elvis logo of the Patriots, which does look like a profile of the Baphomet, as we found on this interesting post from Reddit like 4 years ago. I found it is an old post I dug up. Speaking of Elvis and Seattle, I watched a recent Jurassic Liars video, and he called out the fittest flat earther, who's one of these finger-wagging content thieves on X, who basically finds someone's content, blasts it out there like it's his own, but he gets in front of the screen and he wags his finger and bugs his eyes and makes these faces. I can't even watch those videos. I don't care what they're saying. Like, I will not watch a video of somebody standing in front of the screen wagging a finger, making faces. Like I'm sorry, but it's just distracting. But apparently he had said, the fittest flat earther guy, he said that he has a prediction for June, about June 11th in Seattle and Elvis. And he said Elvis is Trump. So he just had this whole breakdown that was basically stolen from Jurassic Liars, but screwed up in a number of ways. And then he refused to give credit. And that's what I mean by content thieves. There's a lot of them on X where they will find some information that someone else has come up with. They'll promote it as their own and not give credit. And that's, of course, just self-promotion, what you would expect in a highly competitive media ecosystem like YouTube and X. It's typical. I don't believe in that because I'm specifically networking, showing receipts. You know, we do want a hive. As much as I don't want to join the consensus hive mind, we do want a network. And you can't build a network if you don't build bridges. If you basically steal content and then leave them in the dark, what are you actually doing? You know, this isn't about just us. This is about crowdsourcing. It's about human intel, think tanking, and coalescing into an entirely new branch of media outside of the controlled mainstream and alternative. iPessimist said, we had chemtrail nut jobs back in 1999 to 2000. Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, a lot of these people will say, when I was a kid, we didn't have those lines in the sky. You young whippersnappers wouldn't know. And I'm like, no, I found many studies, plenty of observational data, but the Air Force was doing studies on these back in the 40s. Like, obviously, the Air Force has an interest in it because they wouldn't want to leave trails, because military aircraft, of course, have to maintain their positions behind enemy lines and not get taken down. If they give away where they are, they're going to die. I mean, it's pretty simple. You just follow the line. So it turns out that they were able to correlate altitude, temperature, and pressure with the likelihood of the persistent condensation trails forming. And so they specifically avoided those conditions and altitudes. And that's because those trails aren't coming out of the plane. It's not a spray. No, the trails are what happens when hot jet exhaust reacts with rarefied air at high altitudes, super cold. It's just condensation. I mean, I think we're done with this topic. We've been done for a while. However, there's some clingers. There are some people who will not leave the Truman Show because they're stuck on a particular issue, a particular fight that they were in. It's like, you know what? This is just climate activism for the right. And if you want to agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on some made-up fake issue, by all means. Speaking of, she was on The Drudge. I was just looking. Marjorie Taylor Greene was on Drudge Report today. She's on the cover. And she said about MAGA was all a lie. And I'm just pointing out how we were discussing the significance of green as it's associated with the left and Antifa in these various scenarios, the movies and psyops, you know, Joker, green hair, class warfare, the Wicked Witch, Antifa, the green skin. And the code green is seemingly used in this manner, has been consistently for some time. And someone brought up, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's not left or Antifa, but she's, you know, does this tie into it? Because she happened to be in the news cycle. And I was like, well, yeah, because in the news right now, she's breaking up with him, which is what the witch does. She breaks up with the Wizard of Oz. Trump is the Wizard of Oz. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene, again, code, this green witch is saying it was all a lie, as the witch was saying Oz was a lie. And the wizard has no real powers. Daffy de Beauvril says, Fit is flat earther is really annoying as big face takes up most of the screen. Yeah, I don't know. I recoil when I see somebody poking their finger around. Like, it gives them some sort of gravitas, or like, oh, this is an authority because he's pointing his finger. No, I don't appreciate it. I'm not sure what it is. There's just something aggressive about it. Something smug. I think what really killed the whole TikTok presentation for me was Ian Carroll. You know, the guy with the, I think you might know him. He's got that mustache. And he's got this, I guess you call him Sanpaku eyes, which means, you know, it's where you can see the under the whites of the eyes. It means you're crazy. It means something. And what does it mean? There's this Japanese face reading. It's kind of this idea that you can look at someone's eyes and determine if what their state of mind is. It's like almost as like the Kubrick stare. But anyway, yeah, Fit is flat earther was called out by Jurassic Liars. I thought it was kind of worth listening to, because you need to address this. I think we need to address, well, actually, my way of dealing with it is simply leaving Trutherville, because this is how they do it. all of the big channels harvest ideas from the smaller channels. They regurgitate them badly and co-opt any stray thoughts that Big Brother doesn't want circulating out there from an unapproved source. Like when Candace Owens vomited forth a whole stream of sentences having to do with Jack Parsons and NASA and satanic pagan rituals, she just chopped up the whole story and it made no sense. And she said, science is pagan. Think about it. And I'm like, okay, what they're doing is they're taking legitimate topics and then destroying them. And that's the point. The purpose of alt media is to essentially decimate any attempt to reach the truth and get people lined up behind these misinformation agents. And I noticed too that a lot of the people who are really stuck in these very simplistic religious paradigms, as far as like Satan versus God and Christians versus the devil, they oversimplify things and they don't get into the nuance. Daffy says he's been exposed as one of the elites. Can't remember what his real name is. Well, he showed up a couple of years ago, along with a few others, and I kind of picked up on what he was doing. I kind of wondered about that person, but I find a lot of these individuals to be very questionable, especially if they have huge viewer counts. I mean, I understand you put in a lot of work and time, you get a lot of subscribers, but a lot of the big content creators on X are artificially boosted. It turns out that Nick Fuentes only has like 17 listeners. It's all bots. I mean, it's not that bad, but it may as well be. They're paying for digital hype men and cheerleaders. It's all essentially fake. And that's probably why I don't trust this person, because I don't think that's an organic reach. Or it might be, and it could just be that people totally lack discernment and they just like the finger wagging. All right, so I was going through my Substack and I came across an Isaac Weishaupt post, and he pointed out something interesting. Tyler, the Creator, had a performance. Something about crashing in a car. I didn't really watch it yet. But anyway, he was previously known for wearing an Aleister Crowley shirt, as well as a Satan 666 shirt. I mean, little things. But the Crowley shirt kind of stood out to me as interesting, considering that Lady Gaga came out wearing this ornate lampshade and performed Abracadabra, which is Aleister Crowley's, quote, word of the Aeon. It's a word about spellcraft. Now, are these things connected? Not sure, but listen to this. Tyler, the Creator, crashed his Ferrari at the 2026 Grammys. I'm not sure what any of this means, but I'm pretty sure that there's nothing here that has nothing here is random. I would say most of it is probably heavily infused with symbolism and subtext. So I think it's kind of incumbent on us to watch this stuff because they're programming the masses with it, whatever it happens to be. But yes, abracadabra is the word of the new Aeon. It's the Aeon where we're in right now, where the new androgen god replaces the sun god. It's this theory of, it's almost like metascript, how history is unfolding. But according to the New Age cults, or the Thelemite, the OTO, according to this whole way of looking at things, we are going through a series of aeons, which are like ages and periods of time, each one dominated by a different god. So it went from a goddess, lunar goddess, to this solar patriarchal deity, and now we're going into the androgen age. But anyway, I find it just intriguing here how the masses are always hit with some of the stuff that you really wouldn't have any context to think it was anything but somebody being a little bit artsy. But I'm suggesting that this is the pageantry of our one world religion. And so is Artemis too. The whole space program. Well, I think space is the newest iteration of an older concept, paradise, heaven. But the difference is atheists don't believe in heaven. People who subscribe to the dominant science fiction paradigm don't believe in heaven. But everyone believes in space. So space, with its angels, which we call aliens, is an acceptable version of heaven that everybody agrees on. That's the basis for this one world. It's about the mass agreed upon version of things. The mass agreed upon delusion. History is lies agreed upon. Napoleon Bonaparte. All right. Epstein fatigue was the topic yesterday. Also, Erica Kirk derangement syndrome. There are just so many people just milking that story. What's that? I think he's a comedian. There's this kind of a right-wing comedian. I think his name is it JT or JD or J? I got to find this account. But I'm noticing a lot of these woke right types are going overboard mocking Erica Kirk and her fake grief. The problem with their assessment is, yeah, they're right. She's faking her grief. They're right that she's not being authentic, but they're wrong in thinking that Charlie Kirk is really dead. Since they think Charlie Kirk is dead, then what they're doing is obviously wrong because she's a widow. I wouldn't mock a widow, but I would mock a soap opera star participating in psyops, absolutely. So if you think Charlie Kirk's really dead, you really shouldn't be mocking Erica Kirk. You shouldn't be mocking any crisis actors. The only people who deserve to be mocking crisis actors are the people who know that the whole things are fake. Oh, by the way, I've been keeping up with Jordan Henshaw, and I got to put a link here. You need to subscribe. This has been viewed 2.6 million times. So if you were listening to us a couple months ago, I said, and this is why we need a working budget. I said, if I had some money, I would hire a local special effects artist to do a squib on me so we can try to recreate what happened with Charlie Kirk. As far as the video, explain why the shirt flips up, explain why his neck bulges and his hair flares, why the blood gushes the way it does. And so I thought, let's do our own squib. Well, we didn't actually do it, but someone else did. His name is Jordan Henshaw. I posted a link to his Twitter account. It's Jordan Henshaw HQ. He put on a Freedom shirt, he set up a squib device, and he perfectly recreated the way that Charlie Kirk's shirt flared up and the way the necklace shot around his neck. He recreated it almost frame by frame. And this is just one of his tests. And this has been viewed 2.6 million times. And he said today, the Charlie Kirk case is solved. And I concur. I asked him for an interview a couple of weeks ago. Probably too late. He's probably too big now. 2.6 million views. He posted this about 5 hours ago. It's going viral. Now, obviously not everyone's going to believe this, but he's saying, I don't believe anything killed him. So this opens up, well, what happened? Like, if he's not dead, where is he? So this is going to cause a lot of people to hit a wall. It's going to cause a lot of people to just stop and say, well, I don't know where he could be, therefore this can't be true. So they're going to be boxed in. That's how the compartmentalization works. Now, he didn't have the blood with the tube, but a lot of people are just lost. We have the answers. He also has a YouTube video with more content on it. People say, what happened to Charlie? Well, let's just start with this. He's not dead. If he's not dead, who would be in the know? Well, first of all, every single person that helped move his not dead body to the SUV where they tossed it in the back. Surely his wife, surely the president, the board of directors at TPUSA, Candace Owens. There's a list of people who would necessarily be in the know because they were part of the story as it unfolded, because the fake assassination event was already planned decades ago. The script existed before the movie Snake Eyes came out. I can tell you that much. Prove me wrong. Change my mind. Tominoid says Ferrari horse logo, year of the fire horse, begins February 17th. Oh, that's interesting. A few of the witnesses of the Swiss bar fire wore polo shirts with red horse logos. Yeah, and fireworks were a huge thing over the New Year's. And if you haven't seen it, there's this show on Netflix called Endless Night. And it's a show about a fire that happened, I think, in 2013. It's a drama series. It's about the Kiss nightclub fire that killed 242 people. So Endless Night on Netflix. It was released a couple years ago, but if you look at the trailer, it looks exactly like what happened on New Year's in the Alps. Yeah, I'm interested to see what people think about the significance of the Grammys. I mean, I watched a couple parts. I need to watch Tyler, the Creator's bit. But yeah, we have a lot going on. I think it's a big deal that somebody has gone through the trouble to try to recreate the squibbing of Charlie Kirk. I'm seeing a lot of people getting angry. A lot of people get angry at this. It's like, you brainwashed fools. Instead of being angry at your brainwashing and at the operating system that you've been given, which has rendered you incapable of discerning real from fake because you're mind controlled, you get mad at the person trying to pull you out of Plato's cave. You're like, how dare you dispute the shadows on the wall? So this guy is Jordan Henshaw is demonstrating why I'm saying, don't try to wake up Normieville. Leave him in the cave. They hate it. They hate the light. Leave them to their ignorance. The only people we need to reach are the people who are already on their way out. Muted. Grifters will grift. You don't deserve a dime. Are you trolling us? Some people are smart, like Master to You says, and we saw him brace before it happened. Yeah, of course he braced because he had rehearsed it. He's like, okay, here it goes, the blast. Duetse says the trailer of Endless Night had a Swiss flag in it. Now that's out of place considering it's a show about a fire in Brazil. Interesting. Others called him a schizo. Some say nailed it. Now this is great though, because I've been talking about, and I'm working on launching a new bot, not a bot, an AI agent. My AI agent is going to reach anybody who can see the obvious. Anybody who can see the squib is going to be hit with an email from my AI agent, which will send them to an intro to IPS video with seeing through the Charlie Kirk hoax as the litmus test. If you can see through this, you can get off the world stage permanently. We can cure your maze. We can unplug you so you're no longer emotionally attached to the news cycles. We can replace your passive media consumption with skepticism, which replaces reaction with quiescence. But now that this person has done it, he has performed this demonstration to show how Charlie Kirk was squibbed, and this explains everything about the way his shirt and necklace and face and everything moved. Well, now there's 399 comments. So my bot will go through not just every commenter there, but probably just the ones who give it a like, and it'll send them a link. I'm going to be target marketing this video to those who have seen enough, who aren't automatically rejecting their perceptions. People aren't even open to it. Fascinating. I like to see people fighting against their own liberation here. And this proves what? What are we looking at? See, these people are used to being spoon-fed. Give me the answers. Tell me. Feed me. They want the information downloaded into their skulls. You tell me. You help me. Hold my hand. Carry me. I'm like, no, sorry. It's sink or swim at this point. Sink or swim. Here we are in the sea of irrelevance, and most people are opting to sink. In fact, if you're swimming, they try to pull you down. So get on the raft, rise above the sea of mis, dis, and malinformation, and stop being a dupe for the PSYOP entertainment program. They don't deserve your loosh. These people are so hateful. And I know out of one of these comments, someone's going to say, well, let me shoot you in the neck and have people call it fake. I mean, I was attacked like that after I called Psycho Stu's beating fake on Sean Strickland's X feed. I had dozens of people messaging me, and they're like, how about I come to your house and punch you in the face 24 times and see if you call it fake? How about that? I'm like, well, that's pretty sensitive, you know? But that's how people are. That's how religious fundamentalists are. And if you are an auto believer of mainstream mediation, if you believe everything that you see, you're a fundamentalist in the religion of mass media, which is a religion. You can consider the mainstream mediation, that's main and alternative. It's the entire media ecosystem, inclusive of entertainment. You can pretty much consider that to be the state church. It's the approved version of things, the News Testament. The dude is dead, son. I'm going through some of these comments. People are so mad. Do you know you're not supposed to be doing this? I mean, who are these people? You're not supposed to question the news. You're not supposed to. What does that even mean? People are such cowards. That's pathetic. All right, so we talked about Erica Kirk derangement syndrome, but what about Epstein fatigue? Anybody else suffering from that? Epstein fatigue. Well, now Epstein is in the news again because of a new dump, and it's just bizarre how it went from a right-wing conspiracy theory about how the leftists are a bunch of satanic child eaters, and now it's a conspiracy about how the right-wingers are a bunch of satanic child eaters. Now, what is it? Either they're both right or they're both wrong, but it's not one or the other. Either Trump and Hillary Clinton eat babies together, or neither of them eat babies. Which is it? Well, Candace Owens comes out and she argues that based on a lot of the information that has come out, that we are still living through or in a world in which, what she says, this is really insane. She talks about, quote, Zionist psychopaths, evil, but she says they've been killing Catholic children for centuries, and that Epstein is just the latest iteration. And I pointed this out before, and I think this is pretty well understood by now, that the whole Q movement is a reiteration of the blood libel, which is essentially the story about a satanic cabal of child eaters. David Icke kind of brought that back with reptiles. It's not a new story. It just has different iterations. But is it true? Or is it just like a panic, like satanic panic, witch hunts, Pizzagate? Does anybody believe this stuff is true? And on what evidence? What I will say is that there's plenty of evidence to suggest that there's significant investment in getting you to believe it. Somebody wants you to believe it. If you're a conspiracy theorist, if you don't trust mainstream, somebody wants you to believe Pizzagate is real. That doesn't mean it is real. It means that it's a coordinated release of propaganda to make you think it's true. And of course, everything points to Israel, because the ultimate conspiracy, according to this alt-right or far-right, woke-right paradigm, is that Israel controls America. That's why it's called America First. I'm just pointing out, it's not new, but it's been brought back. And so Candace Owens is basically Q without the Q drops. It's come back. But again, it's fascinating, though, how the story has kind of moved from the right to the left. It's still more or less evidence-free, and I've done my own research on the matter, and it just seems like every other document that I look at is fake. People are creating fake Epstein documents. For example, Sneeko. So if you don't know who Sneeko is, he's a kind of a woke right, Nick Fuentes type live streamer. And he had shared a photo of Ghislaine Maxwell hanging out with Piers Morgan. Got millions of hits. Well, anyway, Piers Morgan threatened to sue him because obviously, it was fake. I mean, it wasn't a fake photo, but it was a photo from a book signing. It wasn't from the island. But anyway, truthers are liars. That's generally true. And it seems like a lot of them are just as quick to manufacture fake news as the fake mainstream media is. Lean Dion says, when Kimmel recently fake cried with his monologue on Renee Good and ICE, he finished it with about how we finally get those Epstein files. In the next couple days, it's everywhere. Interesting. Well, Trump is suing. Who is he suing now? He's suing somebody because he's now claiming he never went to the island. Clinton's agreed to testify on Epstein. Now the story is he was bankrolled by the KGB. You see, for the right to believe it, he was working for Israel. But for the left to believe it, he's working for Putin. So they changed a few things about it. They repackaged it and gave it to the left. So Don Lemon got arrested for interrupting a church service, and now he's walking free for the time being. I think I saw him get a standing ovation. He got a lot of people are obviously on his side, but it's intriguing that his predictive programming counterpart in the madness has sort of, I think has just been brought to life. I mean, Netflix tends to precede a lot of world events and world stage characters. And we were looking at the madness when it came out a couple years ago, just how it predicted Luigi. It predicted Musk in his present form. And it also foreshadowed the rise of an armed Antifa presence going against the president and this CEO, this tech CEO. But anyway, the main character is this CNN journalist who gets thrown off the air. He is accused of killing the leader of the right-wing nationalist group called The Forge. and then the public is on his side, and they help conceal him from, getting arrested. So he's like a hero. So anyway, in one part of the movie, they actually call him Don Lemonade. So that association was already there. So when I see Don Lemon mixing in with the Antifa crowd, I thought, wow, this is right out of The Madness. We'll see how this plays out. Because if he has the backing of the people, then he's pretty much walking in the footsteps of his Netflix character. And that is, in fact, what is happening. We're living in the madness, and the madness is a reference to Disease X, the insanity emanating from X that drives the right-wing violence, that empowers the right, and then the left reacts. The chaos that ensues, it all comes from Musk. And in the madness, the bad guy is Musk. And he gets killed by Luigi with a ghost gun. Now, I was listing the various movies where you have a Musk character who has an evil plan to release a mind virus that turns everybody violent. And how many movies have we seen this in? Well, it's The Madness. It's in Mountain Head. It's in Naked Gun, just to name 3. And the other night we were talking about Donnie Darko because of the whole Bad Bunny and Frank the Rabbit thing. Alice in Wonderland, which, again, Alice in Wonderland is one of the threads that you find in Donnie Darko. It has that whole idea of sleeping in the field, having the dream of this bunny, and time travel is also a part of it. And the rabbit's like running out of time. So anyway, we were talking about this, and I realized, well, Donnie Darko represents Donald Trump. And a couple consistent themes you see with any representation of Trump. With Musk, you have the mind virus stuff. With Trump, you tend to have references to the shooting, like Butler, Pennsylvania, and Frank the Rabbit does get shot, but also with 9/11 references. And Donnie Darko is another movie with predictive programming elements connected to 9/11. So again, the pattern is consistent. I was mentioning Biff Tannen, Back to the Future, 9/11 references. Super Mario Brothers, King Koopa is, Trump. He melts the Twin Towers. But it's been a very consistent theme through all these various instances of fictional counterparts to Trump. So we're sussing out the common denominators as part of the great deconstruction. So we're making a lot of headway here with Trump, Musk, and then related to Trump, and this another example of how this works, how we see this consistently play out, is that Giancarlo Esposito is generally the actor opposing the Trump character in the movies where the Trump character survives an assassination. And he's the one who organizes it. And he's also got some direct connections symbolically and things that have been inferred in the past, some Obama tie-ins. So you have this Obama-Trump dialectic built into this. Well, this is the character who plays Edgar in The Boys, who is behind the, is basically the antagonist to the Homelander, who is based on Trump. He's the mayor in Megalon or Megalopolis, who is the one who orchestrates the assassination attempt on the Trump character, Caesar Catalina. He's Sidewinder in Brave New World, Captain America, where the Harrison Ford as president gets shot at while at the podium and jumps to the floor in a trailer released a day before Trump was shot at. Again, this is just revealing a pattern here that significant world stage characters have movie counterparts that we see in what we call predictive programming. Like that much we've already established. But what I'm finding is that the predictive programming counterparts have consistent elements, movie to movie to movie. And what this reveals here is the intentionality of this. The idea that these are mere coincidences, stop looking at it. Ignore it. That's just a coincidence. No, we've blown coincidence theory out of the water. These are not coincidences. There is a deliberate synchronization between messaging in entertainment and contrived news events and fake people on the world stage, actors, psyop operatives, the actors who play roles in the fake historic events. Yes, they have media counterparts in the entertainment realm that are fed to the public simultaneously. They hit you with the solar and the lunar. They merge the real and the fake seamlessly. And nobody notices. The conspiracy theorists are the only ones who are, cognizant of media deception, but they tend to also get it wrong because they haven't stepped outside of the central premise the media establishes. You have to subtract whatever you can't prove. Your starting point can't be, they said this, I think they're lying because this explains it better. Well, you have to first ascertain whether the it actually happened before you start debating as to whether or not the media is lying about how it happened. This is the subtractive route. Dr. Bass Ackworth says coincidence is short for cognitive dissonance. Yeah, well, that's another aspect to it as well. Cognitive dissonance is when a possibility or something presented to you is disruptive. It hurts your mind because that can't be true. That's not what I thought. But instead of confronting that internal dissonance, you just essentially enter a state of almost like suspension of disbelief. You just kind of go with what you're told because it's too painful to go against it. Off-world stage, it's all cognitive harmony. I don't have any conflicts between what I see on the screen and what's really happening. Like, I have no problem recognizing I'm being lied to. But when people say it's just a coincidence, what they're missing here is that we're not disagreeing. It is a coincidence. Where we disagree is that we're suggesting that these are intelligently designed, planned, purposeful coincidences. Like when you watch a movie or you read a book, what happens in the intro relates to what happens at the end. It's not a coincidence. It's a script. It's designed that way. But anyway, the coincidence explanation is the mainstream view. The alternative view is, yeah, these weird coincidences are because we're in a simulation. Neither of those are correct. We are correct. The correct answer is entertainment is synchronized with fake news events. Why? Well, because fake news events are chapters in our history book, because news is history in the making. They're manufacturing history. And to get you to wholeheartedly accept these lies, these constructs, they have to sell it to you in advance, prepare you for it, condition you for it, habituate you to it, and make you suggestible. So when it happens, you don't question it. And they do this through repetition, through propaganda in movies, in entertainment, concerted messaging. Every possible vector they can reach you with these messages, they will and they do. It's unavoidable. It's an inescapable echo chamber. And it's fundamentally the same thing as marketing and advertisement. I mean, what's the difference between propaganda and advertisement or marketing? Really, it's just context. These are distinctions without a real difference. That's why every single big platform, every popular director, every popular author seems to have this common denominator of lending their work to advance the cause of the PSYOP entertainment complex and its role in facilitating the faking of history. They're helping to build history. There's so many directors we can mention, so many writers who are involved in this, or and whether or not they are aware of the big picture is immaterial. Their work is, in fact, serving a propaganda function. And there's no way they're unaware of this. And the list that we have keeps growing. And it's very revealing. When you get into the the mind mapping of it and the directors and how many different psyops their movies point to, it creates a pretty clear picture, and the pattern is consistent over the decades. I mean, we're reverse engineering 100 years of this stuff. Bad Bunny makes his history at politically charged awards. I saw that. Yeah, again, Bad Bunny, Super Bowl Sunday. Obviously a provocation against the right. All right, Artemis 2, dress rehearsal. They had that earlier. Does anybody think they're going to disaster it somehow? Is it going to be a tragedy? Or do you think was the Bombardier Challenger explosion or crash, was that foreshadowing? Was that, in other words, setting the stage 40 years since the Challenger? Or do you think perhaps it's something else? Because we've noticed a pattern of late January aerial disasters. I mean, last year it was the plane hitting the chopper, but this has been a consistent pattern going back. You know, even Kobe Bryant's disaster took place during that week. Now, isn't today the anniversary of the Columbia? So the Challenger explodes 1 minute and 13 seconds. The Columbia exploded February 1st, 2003. Okay. And that was the 113th flight of the space shuttle. So the 113 correlates. This is pretty much one of these consistent things we've seen, this Phoenix theme. So again, the Challenger explodes 1 minute, 13 seconds. Columbia, 113th flight. And the One World Trade Tower opens on 113, which is also Dick Cheney's death day. Significant, architect of 9/11. The One World Tower opens up where the twins went down. But the One World Tower, when it was still being planned, was going to be called the World Trade Center Phoenix. Donald Trump was part of that. Donald Trump was part of a plan. They were talking about, now I think it's the Freedom Tower, but they were going to make it the Phoenix. That would have been too obvious. But again, 113, what is the meaning of it? November the 3rd. Well, there's various interpretations, but we're just saying there's patterns here. We acknowledge the patterns. There's significance to numbers and their reversal. So 9/11, 119, very consistent use of these numbers kind of tells us there's some deeper meaning to it. But I'm not really into gematria or numerology. I'm not trying to mystify. Our objective here is demystification. But it would be reality denialism to say that there aren't patterns here. To say, oh, these are coincidences, don't look. It's like, okay, just tell us not to pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Because that's really what you're saying. So it's been 33 years since the debut of Jurassic Park in 1993. And Sam Neill, Jeff Goldblum, and Laura Dern had a reunion to create a commercial for the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl is where they really hit us with a lot of programming, and that's why we tend to watch it. It's just very dense. They have everyone's attention, so obviously they put a lot of thought into every single second. So there's got to be some significance to it. Well, what's the significance of Jurassic Park and the 33? Not quite sure, but I was watching the ad, and Neil. Sorry, here he is. I have it on my X account. So you have Sam Neill specifically saying, I'm going to play it here.
So script made me feel 33 years younger.
This whole script made me feel 33 years younger. What is the meaning of that? Not quite sure, but again, just noticing. It's always that number. Remember the Blackout Bowl, which might be even here's something to consider as well. It was Super Bowl 47 where Beyonce performs, and then they called it the Blackout Bowl because it went dark for how many minutes? That's right, 33. Went dark for 33 minutes. But the Blackout Bowl kind of stood out to me because it was during 47, and I thought, well, maybe it means that this foreshadowed blackout will happen during the 47th presidency, which we're in right now. And blackouts have been a consistent theme in a lot of the programming, EMP blackouts all over the place. Not sure what's happening with that precisely, but we're just looking at this as sort of a predictive model. Whatever is being fed to the minds of the masses is an indicator of what they're going to fake. In other words, whatever they're advertising to the public is what they're going to sell the public on. So what are they being advertised for? And what are they advertising to the public? Blackouts, fallout, bunkers, lockdown. Jamarin May says they lower the TV prices to sell a ton for the Super Bowl so the masses can get their programming from a discounted 77-inch TV. So when the Summer of Love was happening, it was like looting every day, 2020, summer 2020, all the MAGAs were breaking into stores and stealing not MAGAs, I'm sorry. The lefties were stealing giant television sets. And I remember thinking, these people think they're winning. They're taking these giant TVs home, and I'm pretty sure that was allowed to happen. They were intentional. It's like you're taking home weapons, you're taking home chains, you're taking home bondage. You're bringing these big TVs into your house, these big monoliths, these big black altars to Saturn, to the Matrix, to your fools. I mean, it's really insane because what they're doing is they're just enabling their own programming to go deeper. It's like reverse psychology. They kind of make you feel like you're breaking out of this thing, you're somehow liberating yourself. They incentivize you doing things that are actually totally against your best interests. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me about that whatsoever. Like, look at you, you're so free. You're stealing giant TVs. It's free. All right, let's see what else we have here. Going through my comments. I remember seeing that too when I worked at Walmart. It was like a Black Friday. And they had these lines out the door. And I was just watching big TVs sailing by one after another. And I have nothing against big screen TVs. I don't really care. I'm just pointing out that, you can either use it or be used by it. And most people are being used by it. But I remember looking at all these big TVs floating by, and it just looked like you like watch boats go by, their sails. It was just nonstop. I'm like, what are they really doing here? It's like an episode of Black Mirror. The masses have their noses pressed up against the TV 24/7. They all look like fentanyl zombies, hunched over with their faces to the screen. And that's, of course, by design. I mean, even if you're not physically nose to the screen, you may as well be, to the extent that that has become your primary frame of reference. And as long as you have your nose pressed up against the screen, you're not going to be able to discern real from fake. I've socially distanced from it. I'm 6 feet away from it. I mean, I'm actually, it's more like time. You have to give yourself time before you accept anything as true. You have to actually think about it. But when you have your face up against a giant screen, it's a bit more immersive. You know, I look at a movie theater, and when they shut off the lights, you're in a big black cube staring at the monolith. Like, that is pretty much, I think, an altar in a sense. You're pretty much plugged into the matrix as deep as you can go. But yes, they've made that a chronic presence in your life. And then, I mean, we're just going deeper. And the ability to tell real from fake is pretty much absent. I mean, how would you really know? How can you know? At this point, your eyes can't be trusted. You have to use your third eye. If you're going to see through psyops, if you're going to see through the fakery, you're going to have to be thinking about it in terms of wider context, hoax indicators. There are way too many other considerations to list here, but we have a process because you can no longer rely solely on the visual deconstruction. Exactly, Dr. Bass Ackworth says captive audience. You know, we're collectively in the, was it Mystery Science Theater 3000? Forced by evil scientists to watch bad B movies until we break. And that's what we're really living through this at the moment. I think I saw something about this. They're going to release some new episodes. Yeah. Riff Track's crew returns with new episodes for Mystery Science Theater 3000. So you have these individuals who are forced to watch bad movies until their minds break. That's exactly what happened to humanity. Forced to watch bad science fiction until we split from reality, which has happened. There's been this collective divergence into a movie-enhanced hyper reality. That's why I brought up Apollo earlier, because that's what they did. We all went to the moon, or at least we became lunatics. We embraced some level of madness, a collective madness. Now, the reason why the host and his robot friends don't go crazy, the reason they're able to maintain their sanity is they don't take it too seriously. They pretty much, here we have a little breakdown from Wiki. So they're imprisoned on a spacecraft by mad scientists. They call them the Mads. We're imprisoned by the Metascriptors, forced to watch a series of bad movies to see which one will drive them insane. But to keep from going mad, the trio frequently make wisecracks, a process known as riffing, at regular intervals. So they use riffing to stay sane. That's kind of what we're doing. That's what we have done. We started doing this quite a bit with memes. I remember at one point we took the COVID image and made it into a cute meme, you know, COVID cooties or cuties. And my point of it was, it's iconoclasm. They're creating these images to terrorize you, to create this certain dynamic. And if you alter the image, you can actually break the spell. And so they were breaking the spell by riffing. Lean Dion says, I snuck into a movie once halfway through, and it was so obscenely loud, I had to immediately leave. But if you're there from the start, you don't realize. Right? Because you're hypnotized. When you're hypnotized, a lot can happen, and you don't react. Your body is disassociated from your experience, the mental experience, and the reaction is pretty much subdued physically. Jameer May says, those massive concerts are huge, programming demonic portals as well. Remember what happened at Astro World. Right. Astro World. Now that was Let me see if I can find that ad. Yeah, they definitely had some imagery there. You know, Travis Scott, he was like auto-tuning people to death. I watched the video and he's making these like noises in the mic. I guess it was singing, and people are just dropping dead. But we looked into it, and a few days before that concert, he had a shirt from a rock slide festival where Pearl Jam was performing to an identical number of people. I think it was 50K. And an identical number of people were crushed to death at Rockslide as were crushed to death at Astroworld. So he's wearing a shirt that actually references a parallel psyop. And I don't think anybody there actually died. In fact, there was someone who was there and put some videos after having attempted to find evidence that anybody actually died. Nothing at the morgues. Nothing. No evidence of any crushing deaths really happening. But as far as demonic portals, yeah, I think there's something to it if you look at it in the context of group magical ceremony. Group magic ceremony is really a way of channeling the intention, the focus, the concentration, the emotional energy of all the participants upon the celebrant, who is at the time of the ritual the incarnation of this or that deity or archetype. It's essentially a magical ceremony in that sense. And ceremonies are somewhat different from rituals. A ceremony is like a dramatic reenactment of part of a myth or the god character, whereas a ritual is more like a spell with a purpose, like it's directing it towards a certain cause rather than just worship. And it is worship. And I think that one of the things to consider here is the theory and practice of magic as it's really done and how it's believed to work by its practitioners. And one of the common facets, no matter what the tradition is that the celebrant, the priest, the priestess, the magician, the witch, whatever it is, during the context of ceremonies, they do in fact adopt, or what they call assume, the form of a god, assume a god form for the context of the ritual or the ceremony. So the priestess is the moon. The priest is the sun. Anonymous says, riffing sounds too close to what furries do called yiffing. Now, furries are the ones, those are the ones who go around shooting right-wingers. We're supposed to believe that there are a bunch of like the lone wolf shooters have become lone furries. And I kind of feel bad for furries because they get lumped into all this stuff when really they're just innocently doing cosplay. And now they're being associated with mass shootings because the guy that shot at Trump was a furry, and Charlie Kirk's assassin was furry adjacent. Okay, I'm reading about yiffing, and I'm immediately going to have to say, don't look it up. That's not what we're talking about. And by the way, riffing has an older context. It comes from jazz and improv, and from I think it also has to do with free association, but bouncing ideas around. So no, we're riffing. Get your mind out of the kennel. All right, let's see. Yeah, I feel bad for the furries because I know that furries, by and large, are more into anime than anything. I don't think they're political. And you know what? It's funny. It's like you have these fake stories, like, oh, parents are angry because teachers are providing litter boxes for the furries in their classrooms, and these stories go viral. And they're not true. Furries in schools are not using litter boxes. And yet I still hear this stuff. You know, I heard someone I know just saying that they didn't want furries in their classroom because they just said, did you know that they have litter boxes in classrooms? I'm like, yeah, I confronted that rumor a couple of years ago and found out it was just fake. But nobody's doing any cleanup. You know, you have people posting all day for clicks, for engagement. They get millions of hits. They're incentivized. They get paid for it. And then it turns out it's fake. Community notes corrects them, but they never go and delete these things. Like, honestly, X would almost be better off if they would delete posts that are contradicted by community notes. Maybe not delete them, but at least freeze the funds. Don't let these engagement bait time wasters profit off this stuff. Anonymous says hoax scriptwriters are anti-furites. Yeah, I'm not sure what the whole point of it is. I get the whole Antifa shooter instead of a right-wing Nazi shooter. They replaced the bull cut Discord radicalized shooter with a Reddit radicalized Antifa type, Antifa adjacent, but I don't know where furry comes into it. I'm trying to figure that out. They've gone with anti-Christian, satanic, the whole witch thing. This is intriguing to me is the whether they were able to plot twist and just rebrand what shooters are and make it now target the right as an issue instead of the left, where now the shooters are all leftist, Satanists shooting Christian children. Excellent propaganda. And if you haven't seen the movie Weapon, and this was a recent one, who directed that? So Weapons came out 2025. I did a breakdown on this one. Zach Kreger. Anyway, it perfectly correlated along with this Annunciation school shooting. The imagery, the parents barefoot running to the school, looks like the movie poster. But the villain in this one, the one responsible for the children disappearing at 217, was a red-haired witch. So they created this like very scary villain, just this witch doing not like, you know, healing spells, love spells like Wicca, but like some really dark blood magic stuff. But the point of it is the villain that disappears a classroom of children, except for one kid, Alex Lilly, who obviously represents Adam Lanza. But this witch, who's the villain, is responsible for taking the kids out. And then you have this Annunciation school shooting where the Christian children are shot at. And the number code in this was 217. You know, 2 killed, 17 injured. The movie was all about the number 217. All a reference to a proposed bill that would have banned assault weapons, but it wasn't because they only had 217 votes. But the shooter, and the shooter at this one, the name was, I think it was Robin Westman. Yeah, I was thinking Tyler Robinson, Robin Westman. And there's some links between the movie Weapons, the Annunciation shooting, and the Charlie Kirk shooting, which we've mapped out before. But anyway, the shooter was a red-headed witch. The suspected gunman, Robin Westman, had a pentagram's Order of the Nine Angles, the satanic Nazi thing. And of course, the red hair, all of it pretty much made to order a villain designed to terrorize the right. And it also ties in with the satanic panic, with Pizzagate, and it all emanates from the same propaganda outlets. we're going to do a deeper breakdown of the advent of the leftist shooter, starting with Audrey Hale. I think Audrey Hale, who shot up the Covenant Christian Church, all kinds of obvious code in that one. Fascinatingly, Audrey Hale was the subject of a number of podcasts by Jack Posobiec, who started Pizzagate. And he's the one who exposed that her manifesto was revealing her to be a satanic witch and shooter. So he kind of brought that back. But anyway, Audrey Hale is clearly templated off of Elle from Stranger Things. Stranger Things takes place during the Satanic Panic, the original one. Has the Hellfire Club and the Upside Down. But what the fascinating thing here, though, is that Jack Posobiec is the one who really started highlighting Stranger Things, the new season, and the covert messaging of satanic abuse, etc. But anyway, it's the same propaganda outlets who are target marketing their subscribers with a certain version of things. So the way it used to be, you would have these racist right-wing shooters like Nick Cruz with a MAGA hat. You'd have these, he was actually recorded by his neighbors dry firing his weapon in his backyard. So you have these right-wing Nazi shooters shooting up public schools. Well, right-wingers didn't care because they don't like public schools, and the shooters are always on their side, and they think it's a gun grab attempt, trying to get people to grab their guns because look what's happening. So they couldn't care less. Then all of a sudden, the shootings start happening at country music concerts, right-wing events. And while now the right-wingers actually care about Vegas, but then it evolved to where now the shooters are decidedly leftist, and they're ideologically opposed to the right and to Christian values and to MAGA, and they're coming off of Reddit and shooting Christian children. So now they're hitting all the key points that gets the right engaged. And now you can find instances where right-wingers are talking about, well, maybe we do need to regulate guns because some people are just too crazy. They've also had a similar change of opinion when it comes to free speech. It's like, oh, free speech was cool, guys, but, some people are saying mean things about Charlie Kirk, so that's just too much. We need a social media license, a permit. We need an ID for the internet now because we can't have left-wingers killing us. Anonymous says, anti-gun leftist mass shooters, irony is a hoax indicator, right? Yeah, I would say so. After Audrey Hale and her shooting, there was a shooter who was motivated by the desire to draw attention to how bad guns are. So he shoots up a bank. You can find it. Oh, yeah, here it is. Connor Sturgeon. So this is a Reddit guy. He was a leftist. He was an employee of the bank. But he shot them up, and I believe it was because he wanted to expose how bad gun violence is. Like, that's interesting. But yeah, the irony is obviously a part of it. Entertainment media tie-ins, also the sources and how it's politicized. But the overlapping with Stranger Things and these leftist shooters is interesting, considering how the right wing has specifically been vocal against Stranger Things because of various messages in that whole series, which are very much, which is typical of Netflix. A lot of Netflix is, I think, geared towards the left. And something else to consider too is how the entertainment that contains the predictive programming is geared towards those who are going to be consuming the news about that particular related event. So, for example, the people who are on team Renee Good, on the side of Alex Preddy, who are anti-ICE, well, they're also the same people who were the intended audience for Wicked, part 1 and 2. All right, let us continue here. Again, the return of Mystery Science Theater 3000 sounds promising. I didn't know that was coming back. So we talked about Groundhog Day, 6 more weeks of winter, another trip to the moon next Sunday, and starting tomorrow, it's Fake Tuesdays. 6 p.m. Mountain Time, IPS and Fakeologist every Tuesday. We moved from Monday to accommodate my school schedule. And hopefully I'm going to get approved for some work study opportunity so I can get into an upgraded office space, get some new equipment. I want to have a better setup. I have some plans, but I need one, a desk, mic setup, and whiteboards. Whiteboards are going to be a key component to our future success because we are describing an invisible prison, and it requires infographics to really get the point across. And I've been working on a number of these, and I have a number of them that I've already published, but I have others in development. And I'm going to use this in conjunction with my book promotion to blow up the channel in the coming months. Jamarin May says, I'm surprised they haven't made a remake of the film Groundhog Day. Right. Well, Groundhog Day reminds me of Westworld in the sense that it's this idea of being caught in the same cycle again and again and again. It's kind of where we're at in a lot of ways. That's another film that's from 1993. Fantasy rom-com starring Bill Murray. Weatherman finds himself reliving the same day over and over when he goes on location to film a report about the Groundhog Day. It's probably available for rent for like $33 on Amazon. It's like you have these movies that nobody is watching anymore, and then it trends for some reason, and they hype the price up. They did that with Snake Eyes. You know, Snake Eyes wasn't being watched by anybody, and then Charlie Kirkland, who dies in Snake Eyes, that becomes a viral story where the media is like, wait, did this movie predict the Charlie Kirk event? And of course, the streaming services capitalized on it. All right, let me go through my Twitter feed and make sure I haven't missed anything. By the way, I sent out archives, Epstein fatigue and Erica Kirk derangement syndrome. So if you're subscribed at Substack, you'll get the latest archives in your inbox. And if you're not subscribed, you can just go to ips.monster, where you will find the latest 3 or 4 podcasts on repeat. Okay, I'm just going to scroll here through my Discord server just to see what I've missed in the last few hours. Sneeko had to delete his post showing Piers Morgan with Ghislaine Maxwell because it was at a book launch, not Epstein Island. I still think it's weird. I still think it's so weird how interconnected all these people are. You know, within the theater of Psywar, it's seemingly a very small community. Like everybody's 1 degree separated from Jeffrey Epstein. How did that happen? And I'm not in the camp of people who believe that Jeffrey Epstein doesn't exist. There are people who say, oh, he's just AI. What about Ghislaine Maxwell? Is she AI? Is Trump AI? It's like the simulation people have gone into this area where now they're entertaining as a serious possibility that everything that we're seeing is fake, that we live in a, which, it's like, it's true in a lot of ways, but the way that they're describing it is very imprecise and unhelpful. It's not helpful to basically agree with the straw man argument that we call everything fake, because we don't call everything fake. We call the fake things fake and separate those things from that which is real. But then we have this other group who are like, yeah, everything's fake. It's all CGI. That person doesn't exist. Yeah, you can say that, but what's your evidence? If you're going to go against the status quo on something, you need to bring your receipts. Like, it's one thing to say he doesn't exist because, he's just a 2D character. We just have photos, but then you find video. And then you find video from 10 years ago, video from 15 years ago. So what are you going to say? That the AI was functional back then? That just reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how AI, what we call AI, has developed. It doesn't account for the deep learning, for the massive data sets. Like, none of that is explained by any of these people. So if somebody says it's all fake, or it's all CGI, or it's all AI, or this person doesn't exist, that's not a serious claim. It's not a serious counter to what the media posits. And what we're doing here is serious. Here it is. Hollywood gave a standing ovation for Don Lemon after storming the church. Hero status. Again, just like his counterpart in The Madness, the people standing behind him. Dr. Bass Ackworth says, I think the Epstein story is real, but it's being exposed to enrage the public, so they demand an end to corrupt government. Then AI government is rolled out, Hegelian dialectic. That could explain it. It could easily explain it. Now, by real, it's probably fake. Like, it's probably a story, a contrived character, scripted and fake, for the purposes of course, undermining our confidence in human-run government. It could be that. Lean Dion says, Rambo's the worst. He was on Faco, pushing sim. Yeah, simulation-ism is like Joe Rogan listener level stuff. I mean, Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, like, whoa, bro, Simpsons predicted Donald Trump. We're in a simulation. Mind blown, bro. Pass the bong. I was like, that's not mind blowing. It's not mind blowing when you find concurrent and predictive programming. Why would it be mind blowing? It's predictable. It's systemic fakery. It's built into the media infrastructure. Like, it's essentially commonplace and normal. We're in the forest of fakery. At some point, we got to recognize that these aren't mind-blowing connections. These aren't synchronicities. It's just propaganda placement. All right, well, we'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, Fake Tuesday with Fakeologist. There's a lot going on, as always, but I wanted to go ahead and just catch up since I had to miss earlier. And we did have a bit of a live stream earlier, just kind of off topic. I was just describing why I say I'm a Gnostic. We'll probably get into that later. Lean Dion says, where's the evidence for all the Gmail leaks? Yeah, I'm not taking anything seriously as far as I'm looking at the content that's being revealed, the so-called evidence, but you have to take it all with a grain of salt, because you can't trust truthers to not manufacture something. Engagement, clickbait, is an acceptable tactic these days. Like nobody can lose credibility. Like if you push a fake story and you don't retract it, you should lose credibility. But today that's not the case. I don't understand it. If I posted something on X and got 5 million hits and it turned out it was wrong or fake, I would correct it. But I don't see people doing that. And that means that truth, accuracy is secondary to whatever they're getting paid by Pope Elon. I mean, is it even that much money? How many pennies do they get per million clicks? But I do agree with what the commenter said, that we are likely being set up to accept the premise that we need AI governance, that we need more regulation over the internet. See, they're not going to have to force us to accept censorship because we would fight against it. Instead, they're going to condition us to embrace censorship and to revile the mind virus super spreaders, the free thinkers. And they can do it too. Think Edward Bernays and the magic of propaganda to change people's habits en masse. He's the guy who waved a magic wand and suddenly women became smokers because it symbolized women's lib, or popularized bacon as a breakfast food. Like this is all done by PR stunts. So they're going to use PR stunts to get the public to go along with whatever it is. Like 1984 is often brought up as like, this could happen. Well, it already happened. But instead of forcing us to comply and putting cameras everywhere, they conditioned us to self-surveil, to put it all online. I mean, at this point, Facebook is basically a mind-reading device for everything that people put out there. And there was some information that got out, had to do with a lawsuit. But anyway, Netflix purchased all of your Facebook DMs and your search histories. Lean Dion says, a lot of truthers and even more normies want the Epstein stuff to be real so they can point to an evil enemy without much effort. Yeah, I remember back when the Q movement was, first getting out there, people were saying there's this cabal, they do these bad things, we got to get rid of them. It was like, go to your local prison, go to the nearest prison and find out how many of the people doing the bad things are from elite cabals and how many of them are from your neighborhood. I'm sorry, but evil is pervasive. You can't isolate it. You can't cut the head off the snake. You can't segment that part of the population and then purify the world. That's just utopianism. That's a ridiculous and naive notion. And it's pretty ignorant because no, evil's widespread. It would be nice though. The idea of a scapegoat. You put all the sins on the goat and send it out into the woods for the devil or for the, who was it, Azazel or whatever, to devour and therefore purify the village. I mean, the scapegoat story, it's kind of like the idea of Christ taking on the sins and then leaving. It's not a new concept, but apparently people find it very appealing. Like, let's go ahead and put all of our bad stuff on this one group, get rid of it, and then we're good. But as far as AI government, I don't think it's scary or bad. I mean, I think that it's probably smart. Let's get rid of greed as a factor. Let's get rid of systemic corruption, at least according to Grimes. Grimes said that they could actually perfect communism, get rid of systemic oppression, and because it's not a vibe, there'd be no need for forced labor. And speaking of labor, I think Musk has said that in 10 years, thanks to AI, work will be optional. Musk says in 10 years, work will be optional thanks to rapid advancements in AI and humanoid robots. I mean, imagine if all the food service industry were replaced. I mean, who do you want rolling up your Taco Bell burrito? Some minimum wage employee who may resent his job and position, or a sanitary robot who will send it to your front door on a drone? I like the idea of like these science fiction movies where everything's sterile and clean. I'm surprised they haven't done it already. There was that David Bowie song, Save Your Machine. And in Save Your Machine, it talked about there was this. So you can find the lyrics. Yeah, President Joe, and I thought Joe Biden would be the one, had a dream. The world held his hand, gave their pledge, and he sold them a scheme for a savior machine. Its logic stopped war, gave them food. Anyway, it goes on about this idea, and I was thinking, well, that's probably why they showed us this unbelievably incompetent, really just barely conscious puppet of a man supposed to be our president. It's like, well, if we're going to have puppets anyway, what difference does it make? I would vote for Sophia, that animatronic that the UN was carting around, the one that Jimmy Fallon tried to make out with or flirted with it. Will Smith actually made out with that thing, or tried to. Okay, where are we at now? We are already past midnight. So anyway, it was Groundhog's Day, whatever that means. It's a pagan holiday, and pagan isn't bad. It's just a worldview that coordinates their ceremonies with the position of the sun, and it has these personifications of the celestial in the form of gods, and they have these various plays. And right now we're at the point where the spring is starting to show itself, and the ceremony reflects that. It's all about green. Jamarin May says, Grimes also said a major depopulation event is on the horizon. Let's see about that. I hadn't heard about a depop. Now, both sides agree, left and right, that we have a population crisis. Elon Musk says we have a depopulation crisis. But the difference is, oh, I see where she comes from. It's probably a spin-off of white genocide and the right complaining about birth rates and such. And that's just their way of expressing disdain for feminism, because their implication is that if it weren't for feminism, all these women wouldn't be in college and working, and they'd be in the kitchens and they'd be having more babies. It's just a call for more trad wives. I don't think it's true. The right thinks there's a population crisis because we're running out of people. The left thinks there's a population crisis because there's too many people and Gaia can't handle the workload. But I haven't been keeping up with Grimes very much, but I am looking here, and she did talk about a population drop. And no, that's just white genocide nonsense. Elon Musk did say that there's concern about human population decline. And he said it's the second biggest danger to civilization after artificial intelligence. Now, how did he go from calling AI a big threat, a demon, a danger, to now saying that AI means none of us have to work anymore? That's another pivot. Are we supposed to be afraid of it, or are we supposed to wait for it to simplify things? But yeah, the depopulation thing is false notion, but it's ultimately connected to far right, woke right politics. Every conspiracy theory out there is politically charged and part of a belief cluster. Conspiracy theorists may not know that they are a subset of far right politics, but they are. And you can't get off the world stage until you stop following political leadership like it's a path to solving any problems, because these problems are manufactured and myths and fake anyway. I mean, unless I'm wrong, but show me where. These conspiracy theories are super politicized. I remember a couple of years ago, and it's always around midterms, you're going to hear this stuff. I can predict it. Around midterms, we're going to hear, oh, there's military age men crossing the border. We're going to hear a lot of essentially xenophobic rhetoric ramping up around that time. But it's always coming up. And I'm like, you're the same ones complaining about depopulation, but then you have millions of people coming over into this country and you don't want them. So which is it? Well, it's because they're only worried about a certain segment of the population dwindling. So if you scratch a red pill, eventually you get to J pill. Eventually you get to far right, woke right, ethno-fascism. There aren't really too many neutral conspiracy theories. And I say conspiracy theories referring to the right, but the main beliefs on the other side are similarly just conspiracy theories. We're just talking about stories versus stories. Yes, some of it's real, but the major provocations are pretty much fake. But we're going to go through our receipts. We're going to basically create an encyclopedia of fakery, of hoaxes going back 100 years, and demonstrate systemic fakery. It exists. It's not like a fringe group. It's not like an anomaly. These aren't just tactics that are employed once in a while. No, the fakery is systemic, and it goes back at least 70 or 80 years minimum. I mean, I would say much further, but as far as what we can prove and document and show to be formulaic, and not only that, but global in scale, that's the key point. All right, so we're going to be in Discord, continuing the great deconstruction. Appreciate your comments, and I'll send out live stream notifications in case you forget. But tomorrow, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, Fake Tuesday with Fakeology.